Rosaria can banish your enemies to Heckland, and today I'll be telling you how. Let's get into it. 4-piece emblem will be her most flexible set. Excellent across all her teams. Wonderful for her high damaging burst. Gives her some ER as well. Especially nice if you're running 5 Rosaria too. Yet 4-piece Noblesse is another great contender, but 2-piece benefits her burst damage excellently, and the 4-piece works wonders in all her best in select teams. Not only that, but the full set works for Rosaria herself too. Very flexible. Can't go wrong with this one. If you're playing her in reverse melt specifically, 4-piece Lava Walker's your best bet. Not expecting that, were you? Rosaria is easily able to utilize the 4-piece effect. Enemies will always have Pyro on them in reverse melt, and a straight damage increase is very strong. Locking Rosaria into freeze, then 4-piece Blizzard Stairs are a solid choice. Now Rosaria gives you a lot of crit rate already. I think 4-piece Emblem and Noble win in freeze, but this set absolutely works for those wondering. Placeholder sets include 2-piece cryo percent, 2-piece attack percent, and 2-piece ER percent. 2-piece EM as well if it's a reverse melt comp. As for main stats, 2 roots. For freeze, attack percent, damage percent, crit percent, and for melt, EM, damage percent, crit percent. EM gains a ton of value in melt. Prioritize it over attack percent for sure. As for substat priority, here it is. And in melt, Rosaria has some crit rate built into her kit. And in freeze, you'll have a bunch. On top, her A4 also scales on crit rate, so you're free to build more crit damage than usual. Yeah, you want 2k attack and a 70 with 140 ratio on a non-crit weapon. 70 plus to 200 plus, all with the crit weapon. As for her ER requirements, take a look at this sheet for freeze and for melt. And artifact rankings, check this sheet out for freeze and this for melt. Now to sharpen our spear. What tools does our nun need to exercise best? R1 Home is a wonderful crit stick. Big base attack as well. The passive is kinda worthless though. Wonderful flexible choice on her. R1 Jade Spear has a similar effect. Plenty of attack too. Good choice on Rosaria if you haven't. R1 Staff of the Scarlet Sands will be your best bet for melt, because of the passive being tailor-made for this reaction. And with all that crit rate, you can dump all your subs into crit damage. Make sure you keep your ER balanced to make the best use out of this choice. R1 Engulfing Lightning is also a fine choice. Plenty of attack percent and ER here, perfect for Rosaria's kit.
Tell you, it was perfect.
R1 Calamity Queller works too. The main benefit of this weapon, infinite amounts of attack percent.
I got 57 more goddamn
attack percent
in this 4-round magazine.
This will be especially strong in freeze teams, where attack buffs are a rare sight. R1 Skyward Spear is also highly powerful in Rosaria, lots of ER, and a tiny bit of free crit. Nice to use if you've got it. R5 Deathmatch gives Rosaria plenty of excellent stats, attack percent and crit rate for days. An amazing battle pass choice for her which I definitely recommend. R5 Favonia Spear is a classic. Use for team-wide ER and Rosaria's own requirements. You can't go wrong here. I'd recommend this the most if you're playing Rosaria as an Ayaka or Eula battery. And as for the new Fontanian BP option, R5 Ballad of the Fjords. It's a great new EM choice for Rosaria. While it has a great passive, you have to force Kazuha over Shangling and Melt to meet the passive's quota. Aside from that, a fine choice. R5 Wavebreaker is nice as well. The attack is solid and the passive works great in both Ayaka and Shangling Melt teams. A rare choice, but worth using if you got it on hand. What if you're free to play? Then R5 Catch works very well. Lots of free burst damage percent and lots of free ER too. Only problem is how contested this choice is.
Did you miss me?
R5 Missive Wind Spear works as well. Catch will be better, but if you're free to play and Catch is gone, not a bad choice to use. R5 Contain is also solid for Rosaria Melt. EM main stat with some energy included. It'll work fine, though Catch is stronger and more flexible. Where does your weapon choice lie? First look at these rankings for freeze. And now, rankings for melt. Hold it! If you're enjoying the video, why not consider liking and subscribing?
God damn!
Maybe even leaving a cool comment down below. If you do, then Rosaria will bless you. Moving on. Who makes up Rosaria's clergy? Let's start with melt. Reverse Melt's core is pretty simple. 2 cryos, 2 pyros. Your best bet will be Rosaria, Bennett, Shangling, and either Kayak or Chongyun. This team takes advantage of Rosaria's massive melt numbers. Shangling applies pyro constantly, and enemies will always have a pyro aura on them. Her sub DPS also contributes a lot to the team. Bennett's a must for battering Xiangling. Kaya provides some nice sustained cryo damage, and Cons increases cryo application. Melts for days. As for Chongyun, he can unleash huge melt nukes in a moment with his burst. If you want to go all in on Rosaria's DPS, use Shenhe with her. This duo, while expensive, can yield Rosaria's full damage potential, but be wary that Shenhe can steal melts. You can force Kazuha into Rosaria melt teams as well. Instead of Xiangling, you use Kazu. Bennett self-applying pyro will let Kazuha burst pyro, and he can deal some solid damage with his skill as well. You can replace the second cryo with Kazuha too. She's a more unconventional choice in Diluc melt as well. This consists of Diluc, Sucrose, Rosaria, and Bennett. It's a team which needs some level of skill to execute, but if you can pull it off, a very nice melt comp indeed. Now for freeze. Rosaria works in pretty much every freeze team. She's excellent as a sub DPS in Ayaka teams. Great battery for that powerful burst. It doesn't matter what kind of other teammates your Ayaka's using, Rosaria will work in any case. She works splendidly with Ganyu as well. Great sub DPS in a Morgana team where Ganyu's mostly off field. Rosaria herself can run a free-to-play freeze team. This core is the same as a regular freeze team, 2 cryos, 1 hydro, and an animo. Rosaria can partner with Kayak effectively. Any hydro applicant will work fine. Even Yelan and Xingqiu are fine if you on-field Rosaria. Any animo works too, but I recommend Kazuha above all the others. Rosaria is also best in slot in Eula teams. She's the highest damaging support for Eula. Rosaria even beats Mika in these comps. Excellent battery for Eula, and her C6 is highly useful for her. Also provides plenty of sub DPS for Eula. No better unit fit for the job. Great. Now we've assembled our assassin's gang. How does she slice her foes apart? Let's get into Rosaria's talents. First, her normals. She'll deal 5 physical strikes in a row, not much to see here. Her skill's more interesting. She'll do a quick cryo slash against enemies, very simple but deals solid damage, good for particle gen as well. She can actually teleport behind small enemies with this. But anything that is too chunky or has a wood shield like a Minotaur will block her teleport and she'll be stuck in front of them. And most bosses are impossible to teleport through. But aside from looking cool, the teleport helps to close gaps, which saves a ton of stamina. On top, the skill deals a respectable amount of damage. Then for the meat of her kit, Rosaria's Burst. She'll throw down a big cryo lance. This will strike the ground and deal some AoE cryo damage. Her burst then deals continuous AoE cryo damage over time. Huge sub DPS from this burst with no strings attached. Rosaria's kit is very simple. Anyone's able to make the most out of it with ease. Not only that, but every instance of Rosaria's burst can melt. Now for Ascension passes. Her A1 gives Rosaria 12% crit rate for 5 seconds after using her skill. Often awesome to have inbuilt CV within her kit. As for her A4, using Rosaria's burst can give your whole team up to 15% bonus crit rate. This scales off of Rosaria's own crit rate. Rosaria herself doesn't get any crit rate from her A4. Excellent team-wide CV. As for talent priority, simple. Rosaria's burst is the main meat of her kit, so level it first. You'll want to get that skill up as well, since it's also capable of dealing solid DPS. You can ignore her normals, they do nothing for Rosaria's best teams. Yet, what if you want to take Rosaria to the next level? What do Rosaria's comms do? Let's have a look. When Rosaria crits, she gets some attack speed and normal attack damage bonus. While this is a unique con, physical Rosaria isn't that good anymore. Not a very influential C1. Increases her burst's duration by 4 seconds, very nice con, longer the better, a straight DPS increase. She gains a +3 increase on her skill, some extra damage, nice as always. Every time her skill crits, Rosaria regains 5 energy, pretty solid for decreasing Rosaria's ER costs. Very comfy con and a wonderful C4. +3 increase to Rosaria's burst. Great DPS increase and a solid C5. Rosaria's C6 makes her very wonderful in Eula teams. When her burst hits enemies, their Fizz res decreases by 20%. Very solid C6 for physical comps. Rosaria's C2 is her best con, but her C6 is her best for Eula players. Her C6 doesn't emphasize her melt and freeze playstyles, but rather as a physical support. Even so, the rest of her cons are fine across all of her playstyles. I'd say she's complete at C0, but I recommend getting at least her C2 for comfort. Well, Rosaria is one of the strongest cryo units we have right now. Her reverse melt playstyle is very strong, and she continues to hold up and freeze very well. Being a best in slot support in physical teams is also a nice touch. She's also the ideal cryo battery with Favonius Lance. and the perfect Shenhe replacement. Definitely worth a spin if you haven't built her yet. She does much bigger melts than you'd expect. Hopefully this guide was able to get your Rosaria sending enemies to the afterlife. Well then, this has been Juice, signing out, and I wish you all a day full of holiness.